Welcome to the Natural History Cupboard. Come on in.
And welcome back to the Natural History Cupboard podcast, the place where the weird and wonderful parts of the natural world come together. I'm your host, Gareth, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Aaron. Say hi.
Hello.
Hello. Right, well, what have you been up to this week?
Not much. Not much.
Well,
it's been a very stressful week.
Yeah, I think both of us have had a pretty rubbish week, actually. All right, well, go on, give us your stress.
Oh, no, I won't go into detail. We'll go on the fact that we're both smiling, and
we're still here.
I'm happy to just crack on and leave the depression behind, and instead enjoy each other's company and entertain you guys.
Well, I've got one good bit of interesting news of an animal or some animals that turned up this week. So we've been stocking up the new animal center at the college.
Yeah,
bringing in new animals to fill in the new enclosures. This week was the fish, and we finally got all the fish into their fish tanks.
Yeah,
some more than others because some of them, well, they're all very, very small because they're all babies, so they're absolutely dwarfed in these enclosures. But Jess got the ones that she was after, which is her green spot puffers, which are
lovely,
really cute little things.
Yeah.
Drew has got the ones that he wanted. He's got neon tetras and some clown loaches.
Drew, yeah, you are a good man. Clown loaches and neon tetras can't be beaten.
No, they look really nice.
Cool. But the Jess's puffers, that's a good one as well.
Yeah.
I didn't know that any of you guys were considering getting any puffers.
Oh yeah, they're freshwater.
Well, I worked with figure 8 puffers, and they were awesome.
Yeah,
they're very cool.
And my ones that I managed to get in was a bircher. I love birches.
You do love birches.
They're so cool. They're such a really in-your-face fish. They want to know what's going on. But also a purple freshwater clam.
Oh yeah,
really, really quite cool. And the first thing it did was bury into the substrate,
of course,
and just disappeared. And you just saw after about an hour this sort of trail, that has moved along through the sand,
like the tremor worms.
Basically,
dune worms.
But you like what I've called them, so I was like, what can I call this? We want to give a name for each one of them so the students can know them by name, individual wise.
Yeah.
I'm like, what should I call them? I was like, names of this thing that would dig. And I've had in my head for the last week, I am a dwarf and I live in a hole, diggy hole. And so I've decided the clam is called Durin.
I was going to say, is it called Durin
the clam? And I thought, okay, well, I need a fierce thing for the bircher. And I went, well, we'll call him Balrog. So we've got Durin and Balrog. Cool. I'm calling it the Mirrormere tank.
You know that that particular Balrog is called Durin's Bane.
Yes, I know. Yeah. But hopefully he won't become his bane. Yeah, because if he manages to get to that size,
Watcher in the water.
We'll have to get some sort of weird octopus thing.
Yeah.
But yes, that's
really cool. So, what's your cleanup crew? Do you have a cleanup crew yet?
Not yet. No. We got. Shrimp in a lot of the tanks and some plex and things like that.
I was going to say, you did. Do I remember right that you found a couple of snails in the cleaned, dried stonework? Yeah. You found a couple.
Yeah, some that had managed to basically live through being dried out. So
that's so exciting. You got to show me some photos sometime.
Yeah, well,
I'm really glad that Drew got some neon tetras. As nobody who listens to this podcast will think that I like neon tetras at all. Obviously, I hate.
You hate them, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's really, really cool. Yeah.
Let's go into our news, shall we?
Yeah.
It's the news!
And I'll be kicking the news off today. So my first headline comes to us from Bird Guides, which is one that Gareth has kind of put me onto in recent months.
I do like it.
It's turned out to be a useful one for us. And the headline is: Raptor species lost for 55 years, photographed. And this is exciting news, as after a 55-year period with less sightings than a panther on Exmoor, an intrepid photographer has captured clear images of a New Britain goshawk. The species, known to science through only 4 specimens, is endemic to the island of New Britain in Papua New Guinea, and the image, to the surprise of the photographer, is the first ever photo of it alive. So that is pretty cool.
It's quite a cool one. That one was sent in to us by Scott Puddingscombe, who is a friend of the podcast who's sent that one in. So thank you, Scott. I've got from IFL Science, world's largest amphibian turns out to be 9 different species.
Yeah.
I bet that was a interesting one for it to discover. But it was thought to be a single species, but a new study on the Chinese giant salamander, which we have looked at previously in the past, I think.
Yeah, it was one of them, wasn't it? Yeah.
It might actually be up to 9 different species, bringing fresh calls to ramp up protections for this particularly critically endangered species, or what would be now a critically endangered group of amphibians.
My next one comes to us from phys.org, and this is the news that a rare condor hatched and raised by foster parents in captivity now gets to live in the wild. So Malagra, the 17-month-old condor, managed to survive the death of her mother as a result of the USA's historic worst bird flu outbreak. Her father nearly died of the very same illness as he loyally incubated her egg. Ultimately, though, the decision was made to rescue the egg, and she was hatched in captivity by foster condor parents. The Peregrine Fund and the Bureau of Land Management were both involved in an effort that started 40 years ago and has enjoyed plenty of success leading up to Malagra, whose name actually means miracle in Spanish, being just one of the more recent and certainly one of the most difficult successes that they've had. And good luck to her.
Yeah. So my next article comes to us from the BBC, and it's Earth to briefly gain second moon. Scientists say, I love how they put that like they're lying or something. Scientists say, I mean, you can't see it through the naked eye. You're not looking at a giant planet-sized object. We are looking essentially at a captured asteroid that has come into our orbit. Thankfully not slammed into the Earth either, which is always a relief. But this new moon will be tiny in comparison to the one you are familiar with, it points out. Get ready for a cosmic surprise because Earth is about to get a second moon. And this small asteroid is going to be captured by our gravity, although there's plenty of people that say we actually have several moons sort of floating around.
We do have a
planetoid asteroid little bits.
There's one that does an orbit, but it's a very long orbit.
Yeah. So this visitor will be with us from September the 29th for a couple of months before escaping from Earth's gravity, which is, it's kind of like it's just stopping over, you know, just saying hi.
It's not a moon at all. It's an alien spaceship deciding, I've got 2 months here, 2 months on cosmic walkabout. Let's see if this planet's worth visiting.
That's no moon.
My next article, my final article of the headline bit, comes to us from BIAZA, the British and Irish Association for Zoos and Aquariums. And their headline is UK native species thrive among bears and wolves on 5th anniversary of Bear Wood. So shock, surprise, unpredictability, lo and behold, mortals, the universe has provided scientists with yet more data to support the reintroduction of our native large predators. The absolutely unsurprising results can be drawn from a study carried out by Bristol Zoo's Wild Place project, where bears, wolves, and more roam on the woodlands on site there. The study suggests that a population boom in invertebrate species depending on these large mammals are returning in their droves, and as they do so, they are attracting all manner of vertebrate life too, which previously weren't recorded on site. So I joke about how unsurprising that is, but it's always nice to get some nice solid scientific research to back up what we all kind of attest to.
No, that's cool.
Yeah.
My final article is from Forbes, and it's Peter Jackson puts 10 million towards resurrecting the dodo, joining other celebrities and business leaders. He's basically helping to fund Colossal Biosciences, which is the group that also includes Dr. Andrew Pask, who's trying to resurrect the thylacine, which ultimately, in my mind, I think is more important than the dodo and the mammoth. I think it's higher than the other two. The other two have kind of lost their environment. There's still a chance for the thylacine to make a big impact. But I'm surprised that Peter Jackson's not going, can we have the moa or, some other extinct species of New Zealand bird or bird, because no mammal. So yeah, he joins that long list of people putting money into that project, which is becoming like quite a notable thing now. This is not just a small fringe thing in the background.
No,
people are throwing lots of money at this, and we can potentially see these animals back. Someone said the other day in an article, the earliest thought, and these always seem to pop up really easily, and then the dates fly by. 2028.
That's for mammoth.
Yeah, that's what someone reckons for the mammoth.
Yeah.
So
watch
this space.
Colossal Biosciences have Peter's axe.
Do they?
Well, he's throwing his axe in
right.
there with a.
So he gave him a literal axe.
I'm a bit disappointed in you that you didn't.
Oh, I got it. I just didn't know if he was giving them an actual axe.
Colossal Biosciences are called for aid, and Peter Jackson will answer. And that just about wraps it up for this week's installment of the newsreel. The main article is with me today, and it's good news for me. I will preface this by saying that the way this week has gone for me and Gareth, this article, my write up for the article has not been great, so I will be referring to the actual article on my phone a little bit as we go, just to help keep.
That's where I keep most of my articles. It's my small handheld device.
But yeah, the article comes to us from the World Wildlife Fund. I thought I'd say that just in case we confuse anybody and they start looking up.
Just in case they were thinking this was a wrestling podcast.
Which I mean, it's not been called WWF for a long time, but I like to make that joke because I like the idea.
You being of someone who likes both WWFs, did they change it because of the wildlife thing?
The World Wildlife Fund kept chasing their tail over it for a long time, and in the end they just thought this isn't worth it. So
what's the E bit mean?
Entertainment.
Oh, all right.
Whether it's actually entertaining, like as someone who like in a previous life really liked wrestling, whether or not WWE is entertaining in recent years that's a debate for another time. But
on with the original article.
On with the actual article. So this article comes to us from from World. I almost said World Wrestling. Mate, all I've got in my head right now is two panda bears smacking Kane over the head with steel chairs. But what it comes to us from the World Wildlife Fund, and the headline is "Return to Kazakhstan in historic." Tigers, not anybody.
Not pandas.
Tigers return to Kazakhstan in historic reintroduction effort. So this is the news. That is a huge leap forward for tiger conservation, and it is super exciting to me personally because I formerly used to run. It still exists. I just don't do anything on it. But I used to run a tiger Facebook page where I try and collate all the good news from zoos and conservation organizations around the world that were specific to tigers. However, I had to stop doing it because it started having an impact on my mood because
it was always a downer.
Always bad news. Constantly bad news. So when I was a young teen, the prediction was that tigers would be extinct in the wild, totally gone from the wild by the 2020s. We are now in 2024, and the prediction is much better. In fact, as I got through my teens and into my 20s, the prediction became, it shifted somewhat, and now they were saying that the next generation would not be likely to see them in the wild at all either. And I can very happily say that if you and I wanted to go on a cupboard excursion to India to see tigers in the wild, we could take your kid and my kid along with us, and the four of us would be able to very likely see wild tigers because of the work that conservation groups have done. And to be fair, as much as I have criticized WWF in the past for various things, WWF have been instrumental in kind of arranging the whole. I think it was 2x to 2. I think it was like double tiger numbers by 2022 or something like that.
Okay.
They've been instrumental in that, and range countries have really gotten on board, and their governments have worked hard. So yeah, now we could go tiger spotting, and we probably would see tigers. So in a joint effort between the World Wildlife Fund, the United Nations Development Programme, and the government of Kazakhstan, the process of rewilding tigers to the region has reached a major milestone. So 2 have returned. They've returned with asterisks attached, I should note, which we'll come on to in a bit. Now, the duo are they are intended to be a breeding pair. They've come translocated from Anna Paulauna Sanctuary, got it out in the end, which is in the Netherlands, and they've arrived to Balkhash Nature Reserve, which is in Kazakhstan.
What subspecies of tiger are they?
That is one of the asterisks
Right.
that I've attached, because the closest. So it's a bit difficult. The closest living relative to the Caspian tiger, and the one that physiologically we think mimics the Caspian tiger as best as possible, is the Amur tiger. So the Caspian tiger is the tiger that you would have found in Eurasia. It would be found for us in the UK. The closest Caspian tigers would have been Turkey.
Okay.
So quite
close. Yeah.
in terms of global scale, and that would have gone right across. So yeah, closest in terms of range, habitat, size and appearance, and closest in terms of, I think, the actual evolution and genetics is the Amur tiger. So these 2 are Amur tigers. I knew about that because I think almost, it might have been 10 years ago was when I first heard that this was actually going to happen. And now it has. So there are a few names in here that I might say, and I will probably butcher, so apologies in advance. But the space, this kind of region of their habitat has been without tigers for 70 years. So
that's a lot less than I thought.
It is a lot less than I thought, but it's one of these species whose recent extinction, localized extinction. Well, actually, no. In this case, Caspian tiger, they are extinct everywhere. So this is one of those cases where its extinction is so recent in proportion that the habitat is still there for them
to go right back
and
into.
is still very much mourning the loss of one of its top tier animals. So Daniyar Turgumbayev, Vice Minister of the Ministry of Ecology and Natural Resources of Kazakhstan, said it is a high priority for Kazakhstan to work on the restoration of rare species. For ecological value, it is important that our biodiversity chain is restored and that the tiger that once lived in this area is reintroduced here. Now, obviously, it's an Amur tiger, not a Caspian tiger, but they fill identical niche. They're very. It's not like you're plucking a tropical rainforest. Let's say like a Malayan or a Sumatran tiger. Sumatran tiger would be better, because I'll come on to that.
Size-wise, I'm guessing.
Sumatran tiger, you pluck them out. Yeah, size-wise, the fact that it's adapted to tropical rainforest.
Yeah.
But also, there's been a recent overhaul of tiger subspecies.
Yes, I remember.
There's no longer been considered to be 9. That includes the extinct ones. There's only actually 2. You've got the mainland and the island ones. They're all so closely related. So in a way, picking up an Amur tiger and putting it in Kazakhstan really isn't
that big a deal.
No. And presumably, being so close together, if this is successful and they can get a viable breeding population going over there over time, probably relatively quickly, those traits that make the Caspian tiger slightly different from the Amur tiger are going to be reflected in these. So not anything to really worry about. Now, the other asterisk I want to mention is that these guys haven't been reintroduced to the wild. That this is very much what is going on with Amur leopards in the actual Amur River Basin region. So the male and female tiger will be housed in a spacious, this is a direct quote from the article, sorry, in a spacious semi-natural 3-hectare enclosure within the sorry, I'm going to mispronounce this, I fear. In the E41 Nature Reserve. Or is it, that might be the lie. Anyway, so basically they're going to be in a big enclosure in the Balkhash Nature Reserve. Any of their offspring will be released into the wild and will become the first tigers to roam Kazakhstan in decades, potentially the first ever international tiger reintroduction. They will play an important role in the establishment of a new tiger population in the region where they had previously been wiped out as a result of excessive hunting. So that was the other thing I wanted to mention. This isn't an animal that its habitat changed, the climate changed, and it couldn't adapt quick enough. This is an animal that very recently was taken from its environment, was forced out of its environment by us. So yeah. Again, I want to read out a quote here, this time from Stuart Chapman, leader of WWF Tigers Alive. He says, "Today marks a monumental conservation milestone to bring tigers back to Kazakhstan and Central Asia. This tiger translocation is a critical step to not only bring back the big cat to its historic homeland, but also to rewild an entire ecosystem." And one of our headlines mentioned how invertebrate life returned to an area of Bristol because of the top tier predators returning in zoo form, but they return to an area. Now, one of the reasons why they think these invertebrates have returned is because these invertebrates rely on the large carnivores' dung, as well as their fur and other things. And this influx of invert life has brought a load of vertebrate life in birds that haven't been in the area, mammals that haven't been in the area for a long time. And this is what's going to happen in Kazakhstan. It will start with that 3-hectare enclosure with these two, hopefully future parents. They will breed, their offspring will be released. Now, to make this work, though, you're going to need more than just two.
Well, yeah, numbers-wise, definitely.
Need more than one breeding pair, because you're going to need that genetic diversity to
Thankfully, there's no shortage of tigers in captivity.
Especially not Amur tigers. They are one of the more popular species in zoos. Certainly in Europe and Britain, we tend to have Amur or Sumatran.
Yeah.
Very rare to see Malayan and Bengal these days. And oftentimes when you see a Bengal one, it's actually a zoo tiger, which is a tiger that has probably had mixed genetics.
Chester's got Malayan tigers.
Are they Malayan? I thought they were Sumatran.
Oh. I wanted to say Malayan, but now I'm not sure. Scratch that.
But yeah, this is all brilliant. It's all really good news. For starters, the fact that the country is open to having their large predator. When we're talking Amur tiger, I mean, you have to go to polar bear really to get a bigger, like strict carnivore.
They are huge.
Yeah, Amur tigers. I think I've said this before in the podcast before, but when you look at Amur tigers, walruses, polar bears, and elephants, you're looking, I feel, like a window into the past. They really are prehistoric sized, and no African lion can prepare you to see a full Amur tiger in all its glory.
Huge tiger.
They are big beasts. Having worked with two of them and having been close to many of them, I can and having worked with lions too, I can tell you how the size is very noticeable. But yeah, this is a really brilliant bit of news. Anything that's going to increase tiger numbers is good. Anything where a country can show the rest of the world that not only are we willing to live, not only are we willing to open our doors to our large carnivores to try and rebalance our ecosystem, but we're determined to make this work. Like I said, it's over 10 years ago where I first heard that this was going to happen.
Oh wow!
So
it's taken a while.
But but they've gotten there. So hopefully Kazakhstan are gonna and these tigers are gonna serve as an example to everybody. Wolves.
Fair enough.
It is funny how, because I'm on a couple pages that like to discuss big cats roaming the UK. It's funny how everybody is open to big cats, but as soon as you mention a wolf, oh no, can't have a wolf.
Yes.
But yeah, no, good news. Well done WWF, well done Kazakhstan, and well done the UN.
Let's head into our creature feature, shall we?
Let's do it.
It's the creature feature.
Right, well, we're into this week's creature feature. And first off, I'd like to start by saying, that's about as far as I can go. You can do the scream a bit better, but it was getting noise gated out a bit.
Try it.
Do you want to try your best? Try your best.
I can't do it whilst looking at the screen though.
Try not to
listen. Swing the arms around.
Yeah, yeah. I'll put in some pictures of what it is over the top. But if you haven't got that by the fact that we've either gone both mad or just making sounds for the fun of it, we are in fact talking chimps this week. In fact, what I've just done, or what we've just attempted to do, is a very poor imitation of what the absolutely amazing Jane Goodall does to start any talk or presentation that she does on chimps. And if you don't know who Jane Goodall is, we will certainly, I think, have to do a feature on her.
Yeah.
As an amazing conservationist and educator of well, just wildlife conservation and chimps in general.
In particular, chimps.
So yeah, we're basically talking chimps this week.
Talking chimps.
We're talking chimp.
Together, strong.
Not those chimps, no. There would be a few issues I'd take with that for multiple reasons, but I'll get to that later. So basically, we're going to be looking at chimps. This is actually a species that uniquely also crosses over with our Simondoa cockroach from a few weeks ago in both habitat and conservation threats that they face. So let's take a look at our closest living relative. So what is a chimp, first of all? This is one of those areas that, well, both you and I have worked with chimps. You worked with them.
Me very briefly though.
Yeah. Okay. Well, still,
I was just a seasonal keeper, partly on chimpanzees, partly on squirrel monkeys and brown cap capuchins.
Capuchins are pretty cool as well.
They are very cool.
Those you also used to just work with chimps and with capuchins at one point in my career, and you know what? They're two incredibly intelligent primates. But I'm guessing you probably had the same questions that I did as well, which is, are they monkeys? Whenever anyone says monkey or monkey, you often get that said about chimps. But first off, chimps are not monkeys. They are, in fact, apes. And more specifically, they are great apes. And that's not just because they are just really good, but that is the great ape family.
But they are pretty great.
Oh, yes, they are pretty great. Although I think Drew might disagree with us because Drew isn't as pro chimp as we are.
No, he likes prosimians, but oddly, he likes more primates than I do. This is the only species of primate that I've worked with that I will say something good about.
Chimps are incredibly fascinating, and anyone who's worked with them will know that there's just this weirdness about them. So it's kind of hard to get across. But I hopefully we'll be able to translate some of that as we go in this creature feature. So first off, chimps are they are primates, but they are not monkeys. They are a member of the Old World primate family. So that's all the primates that you'll find, including monkeys, in the Old World, which is Africa, Asia, and also Europe is technically in the Old World, although you don't find any European monkeys other than Barbary macaques, which have been introduced into Gibraltar. So in the Old World monkeys, we have the apes, which is then broken down into two groups as well. The great apes and the lesser apes, although there's argument nowadays to say not to call them lesser apes.
Yeah, I can't remember what they decided to call them in the end, but they aren't.
It is basically just the gibbons and the siamangs that fill in the lesser apes. It's more to do with their size, if anything. They're not lesser in any way, and great apes aren't greater in any way. But if we then go from there a bit further,
except for the fact that great apes are factually cooler than the gibbons.
I like gibbons as well, and siamangs.
That's true. I think all apes are great, to be fair.
Yeah. So make apes great again. So they are specifically in the family Hominidae, which is actually the family that we sit in.
Yay!
So the members of this family, Hominidae, is the great apes, essentially. So it's all 8 species, including 4 genera, which is Pongo, which is the Bornean and Sumatran orangutan. Gorilla, the eastern and western gorilla. Pan, which is the chimpanzee, which is what we're looking at. as well as the bonobo, and then Homo, which is where we sit in with the rest of the great apes. So whenever anyone says that they are different from us, they are so close. It's not even funny, because it gets more close than that. They're actually down in the same tribe that we are, which is a classification even closer than family. It is down to the point where these guys have 98.8% the same genetic makeup that we do. There is one closer, and that is the bonobo, which is 98.9% genetically the same as us. But if you've ever been around chimps and spent some time with them, you will see so many traits that are human in them and so many chimp traits in us. There's just very little that separates us in so many ways. Now, there are 4 subpopulations of chimpanzees spread across their range, and that's the Western chimp, the Niger and Cameroonian chimp, the Central chimp, and the Eastern chimp, each having their own like distinct features to them. Most of the chimps that you'll see in zoos, I would say, are probably the Western chimp more than any of the others. But this is one of those things that because chimps were just in a lot of ways classified as just chimp, a lot of chimps that you'll see in zoos are very much zoo chimp. They're a bit of everything.
There's chimps have something that is a little bit similar to tigers in the zoo world, because so a lot of tigers in the zoo world have come from their rescues from circuses.
In the case of chimps in labs.
And I was going to say that. So the circuses don't particularly care what a tiger is a tiger is a tiger, and so they hybridize them willy-nilly, which really messes up conservation. Chimps have had the same in labs, so it's that kind of thing.
So where on earth are they found? We know that there are 4 subpopulations of this ape. They are found in a stretch right across from southern Senegal, the forest belt of Western Africa, essentially, north of the Congo River to Western Uganda and Western Tanzania. They actually have the largest range of any great ape species, which is saying something considering that we've been hammering great ape species ranges for a very long time. It's about 2.6 million kilometers, which is
that's a big range.
But you've got to fit 4 subpopulations into that, and you think of how many you would have in a group in that sort of area as well. So we have decimated their former range and basically made it into lots of little pockets, which is the biggest problem that we've had with conservation for chimps. However, there have been some real pushback and real sort of efforts made. Gombe National Park, which I'm sure you've probably heard of, in Tanzania, was specifically created for chimpanzees, and that was spearheaded by Jane Goodall. She's basically been the sort of, that's where she studied chimps, and that's essentially what then became Gombe National Park. So it's a really key area for those particular chimps, which I believe are the Western chimps that are in there in Gombe. But I could be wrong on that one. So chimps themselves, what sort of habitat do they live in? Well, go on.
Oh, sorry, I thought that was a question to me. No. They live in forested areas, but I'm actually, you might have noticed, I'm looking on my phone, there's actually a group of chimps that you just sparked a memory about that I would like to bring up with you later on, who have a remarkably different habitat. But
I think I know which ones you're thinking of.
Oh, nice.
So they're not fussy. They will pretty much make the best of any situation, and across that range in Africa, in West Africa, there are a variety of different habitats, but the majority of them are fairly similar. So they are forested habitats in some ways or another. So you've got tropical rainforests, lowland forests, wooded savannas, and even swamp forests, and just sort of general swampy areas. So they'll range across a huge variety of different habitats, looking for food and places to sleep and to live. There are even some chimps, which I feel that you're the ones that you're thinking of, that are renowned for living in caves.
These are the Senegal chimps. Yes, there's a documentary on them which I highly recommend watching, called The Changing Ape.
What would you say a cave dweller is called, Aaron?
A troglodyte.
Yes. So remember that in a second.
Ian Malcolm would say, good word use, but cruel.
So Keep a note of that for a second, class. So the word chimpanzee, I always like looking into the etymology of this. And the word chimpanzee actually comes from the Bantu language. The Bantu people live in that part of West Africa. And it comes from their word, or simpanzee, and then it's obviously taken on, sort of more of a ch sound, meaning ape or mock man. So,
Mock man.
small human attempt that lives in the forest, I'm guessing. And the earliest records for the use of this word, in English at least, come around 1738 in the London magazine, which was presumably a magazine that just had interesting articles from London.
Yeah.
And the colloquial term chimp, the sort of shortening of it, was likely coined somewhere around the 1870s off the back of it becoming more popular.
That's longer than I thought that would have been.
I mean, it doesn't take much for people to shorten a word, does it?
No, but you just imagine that people back then, they seem to cling to their rules more than we do today. So I just wondered.
Well, it's not always the modern culture that shortens things into slang. Some slang goes back hundreds of years.
Yeah.
So the scientific name for chimpanzees is Pan troglodytes. Now, Pan, do you know where that comes from?
I actually don't remember. I did when I worked with them, but I didn't think I was ever going to work with them again. So I've replaced that with cats and dogs and reptiles and stuff. But I imagine that's ancient Greek. Yeah.
Well, it is, but it's Pan, as in named after the mythical creature Pan.
Yeah.
Which doesn't make any sense because it's a goat-legged satyr. So,
well, apart from the fact that he fornicated with everything.
I mean, I could see some for that for chimps.
That's a very polite way of saying that. Fornicate.
So, yeah, the Pan part is derived from the Greek god, while the specific name troglodytes actually has nothing to do with living in caves.
No,
except it does. So not all chimps live in caves.
No.
It's a bit of an odd one. So a troglodyte is usually a word referring to someone from a cave. But it comes from the ancient Greek again, troglodyte, which was a mythical race of cave-dwelling African people described by Greco-Roman geographers.
That doesn't at all sound like classical racism.
No. So this is also at a time where you start getting like descriptions, people who've traveled far afield and spoken to one person went, yeah, I saw someone in a cave over there. Well, that's an entire collection of people who live only in caves. So because of that, the name sort of stuck. These people do not exist. There is not some sort of mythical race of African people living in a cave. I mean, if they are, they're very good at hiding themselves. But yes, the name stuck. So it's one of those scientific names that doesn't really have anything about the animal. They don't look like cave-dwelling creatures, and they're also nothing like a satyr. So
I reckon maybe
way to go, Greeks.
the satyr part might come from chimps, the way they hold their back legs, very much like how the satyrs would hold their back legs.
A little bit bowed.
Yeah, a little bit bowed.
Interestingly
enough. Glance.
Well, interestingly enough, do you know why chimps sort of walk the way they do?
I don't know why. I know why that troop that I was mentioning earlier walk the way they do, but I don't know generally.
So do you know what their form of locomotion is called?
Unofficially, knuckle dragon.
You are so close, it's not funny. It is known as knuckle walking.
Knuckle walking.
So chimps often, or most of the time, walk on all fours on their knuckles.
And that's still considered digigrade, isn't it?
I'm not sure, actually.
I think it is, because that's
I suppose it would be,
a bit of information I've kept on about them.
And if you've ever seen a chimp's hand close up, their knuckles almost have like padding on them. So if you were to get punched by a chimp, apart from the fact that it would floor you because they are so much stronger than a human, they would obviously be a little bit more gentle in the padding, I suppose, on their hands.
Yeah, but you don't want to get backhanded.
No,
just like basically like a frying pan shaped fist.
It would not be good. But they walk on all fours, but they can occasionally walk on two legs as well. But they always look really awkward with it.
Yeah.
And it's partly to do with the way that their spine moves. Now, when we walk, because we walk in what's called plantigrade, our foot is flat on the ground.
Yep.
A chimp's foot looks like that. It looks like a hand, and that's because they're semi-arboreal.
Yeah.
They live in the trees, and their foot has not got that nice flat or sort of arched area to it that allows for nice, easy walking, So they can climb really well, and we can't climb very well. Some of us better than others. You're better than climbing than I am. But we can walk a heck of a lot longer than they can. Because of our hallux, which is the bone at the very back of your foot,
Right.
that actually provides a bit of sort of pushing off tension, and gives you a bit more spring in your foot.
Okay.
That allows us to be able to walk a lot easier, plantigrade, flat on the ground. We also move our hips in the alternate direction to our chest. So when we move, your hips will go that way and your chest will go that way. Only minor amounts, but the next time you see someone walking, notice that that's how that looks.
Not so minor when you're looking at a chav.
It's a bit more pronounced, I suppose. But chimps, their rib cage moves in the same direction as their hips. So we are a bit more specialized walkers. We're in fact what are known as obligate plantigrade.
Manipulate that, and that's awkward.
Yeah, it's quite an odd thing to try and do. So basically, they have to walk the way that they do because they can walk on two legs, but they're not set up to be able to do that. So their behavior. This is the part that could be an entire feature of info on itself. There are so many case studies, books, and just everything on chimp behavior. We could go down so many rabbit holes with this. So I've had to really try and condense what I do have. They are incredibly intelligent animals. No prizes for guessing that. They are animals that are actually more intelligent than humans in some ways. They have a better photographic memory than an adult human. So there's plenty of different studies that have been done where they'll have numbers on a screen and they get blanked out, and the chimp will be able to find the correct sequence of them. Humans fail at that far more than chimps do, but our intelligence is in other ways that allow us to be able to find things, and it's all down to survival instincts as well. But what I thought I'd do is outline some of the very basic areas where they sort of match over with humans, because like I said, if you've worked with chimps or been around them for any considerable period of time, you start to see so many things that you see in humans that you see in chimps. You'll see groups of teenage boys all hanging around, basically being idiots and doing stupid things. You'll find bullies in the group that will basically enjoy teasing and enjoy hurting others for the sake of doing it. But you'll also see incredibly compassionate and empathetic individuals that will be able to care for others. You'll also see ones that will do the whole political backstabbing thing as well. Chimp politics is so much more close to human politics, it's unbelievable. There's backstabbing, there's sleeping around, there's bribery,
there's kissing babies.
Yep. And stealing babies as well. I mean, that's more baboons, but
they steal babies, don't they, to then pretend they rescued them.
Yeah,
don't they? Yeah.
So humans and chimps, there's so much similarity. But the first area that I thought focus on is empathy. Chimps are very much capable of being empathetic with each other and show a wide range of emotions. First off, I'd like to just quickly point out as well, there's so many like jumping off points. If you ever see in a film a chimp smiling, that's not a chimp that's happy. That's a chimp that's stressed out and is actually being aggressive, if anything. It's showing fear. It's what's known as a fear grin. A happy chimp is one that's sort of just slightly open mouth, just is quite happy with things.
Looks like they're on the cusp of laughing at something, but gormlessly.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of them more than others. Some of them do look quite gormless. So they will look out for each other and provide help when needed. Both male and female adults have been observed adopting orphan chimps and basically helping to raise them. So they are an animal that is capable of doing the exact same thing that humans do. when it comes to looking after individuals. And in some, they will use it as a political way of getting higher up the rankings by being the first person there to go, "Are you okay? Just let me help you with that.
What can
cut."
I do to help you?
And it helps
That
raise
paper.
your social status being there. So they have respect for elders as well. Now, this is something that chimpanzees basically gain a lot of their knowledge by having it passed down by individual members of a group. And it will be different things from different individuals. Some of them will be better at using tools than others, whether it's fishing for termites, or in the cases of some chimps, using sharpened sticks to stab bush babies inside of hollows to eat them with. So incredibly intelligent behavior that has to be learned and can only be passed down through observation and learning. And you can find that chimps that pick up new things in one area could potentially pass it on to another area. But it's very much like orcas in that sense, that you have these family learned behaviors that tend to stay in those families and not really cross over too much. But, so researchers observed that pant hoots from adult chimps elicit more immediate responses from those of younger chimps. So they know that the adults are calling, and they go, "Oh, I suppose better answer back." They love fun and play. Now, did you ever get any of the chimps that you work with laughing? Did you ever see them laughing or anything?
I've seen them laugh. I've not made them laugh though myself. No.
So some of the chimps,
I've made them angry.
That's easier. That's easy with humans as well. So some of the chimps that we worked with, some of the younger ones, you could just sort of poke them in the back, and that would be enough to make them laugh.
Oh yeah,
they'd absolutely love it. Usually the younger ones, because it's just more fun to them.
One
or racing up and down.
Used to get a stick, and it would poke through the mesh to poke you in the knee. Poke you, and that would be the thing that make them laugh. Him
some
laugh.
of them have got more sadistic forms of humor than others.
As far as I know, it was gentle. But
there was one of them that I knew of that found it incredibly hilarious when in one of the tunnels above, going into one of the different enclosures, would find it absolutely hilarious to pee on people. That was the funniest thing in his mind.
We had one that in the morning when kind of the more senior keepers than me would go round, it would gob on us. So if I was shadowing them, just
it's one thing that you very
the tunnel above
very quickly get used to working with chimps is being covered in either pee, spit, or excrement, because all of those things get flung at you at some point or another.
There's also one that used to, because the tunnels above they were metal obviously, and he'd like the noise, so he'd go through it back and forth, just like hands walking with his hands, but then with the feet bang 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 bang, like in the noise, like a toddler.
So they are very human-like in their play methods as well, and it can be that real sort of this is irritating. This is fun. So they will makeshift play with lots of different things, as well as in the wild. They will find all sorts of different things. There are some really good videos I've seen of baby chimps just going up and poking the oldest chimp of the group, just doing the same thing, going, go on.
What are you going to do about it?
Oh, you're chasing me. They're capable of showing compassion as well, not just to gain political points or to move further up in the group, but just to show genuine compassion. If one is getting close to the end of its life, the group will show empathy around it. And I believe it was the Highland Wildlife Park, or was it Edinburgh Zoo, where they had a chimp die and they let the rest of the troop in. Was it Edinburgh Zoo?
That sounds like Edinburgh Zoo.
Yeah.
Highlands don't have.
Sorry, yeah, I don't know why it was Highland.
That sounds like Edinburgh though.
And they let the rest of the group in to see her after she died, and it helped with the group's dynamic to basically come to terms with the fact that one of their group had died. Because in the wild, the animal doesn't just disappear unless it's been taken by a predator, but generally they're around for a while before they they disappear. And they're incredibly resourceful animals as well, just like humans. They will find things, make things, and usually break things as well. Breaking is one of those things that they're very good at. One of the chimps that I worked with we used to have them trained to bring in any bits that they had found in the enclosure. Rocks, so that obviously no one could throw a rock, because some of them had lethal aim with rocks. And if they'd have wanted to, they could have killed a person by hurling a rock. Most of the time they didn't care. But they knew if they brought in rocks that had been found in the enclosure, because we would go out into the enclosure and we would scour it looking for rocks to just reduce that risk. But they were trained, if they found one, they could trade it in for a treat. We found a stash of rocks one day that had been mined by one particular chimp who had basically, we had these large, the concrete drain tubes that are in, that you can use in a lot of animal enclosures. He had basically dug underneath one of these with his hands, and because it was right next to a gorse bush, it was obviously hidden a bit. And he had ducked under and just basically fed underneath all of these rocks that he'd been pulling out. And he was bringing almost a continuous stream of rocks in just to gain treats. So he was playing the system fully well, and he knew what he was doing. And we would go out, where on earth are these rocks coming from? And we were scouring every corner of the enclosure, and we found this hand-sized area that led underneath to just this pile of rocks he'd been building up for a while. So they're incredibly resourceful animals, and they will find whatever they need to make themselves fit in an area. And it's their intelligence that puts them above. So yeah, they live in loose communities of anywhere up to about 100 individuals. That would be the absolute maximum size group, is 100, and that would be a very large area. And these areas can interfere with or cross over into human areas. Now, when I say interfere, there has been one or two occasions where chimps have taken young children and killed them and eaten them, basically. In the wild, a chimp's diet is mostly made up of fruits, vegetables, nuts, leaves, but they also have protein in their diet. Like I mentioned before, they are known for catching and eating bush babies. Only certain groups tend to do that particular one, but they will also catch duiker, which are small deer that live in the same parts of the forest. They have also even been known to commit cannibalism, especially in the wars that they can have. So you think War for the Planet of the Apes is just a thing? Well, chimp wars can be a real thing. You have not want war. They do. They really do in some cases. So some groups will basically be led by teenage individuals basically wanting to go for a fight, and exactly like gangs of teenagers, basically just wanting to have a fight.
Chavs.
Yeah, essentially. Chimp chavs, chav chimps, something like that. And that will lead to full-blown into sort of tribe wars of these chimps, which can be pretty brutal, and individuals can be killed and eaten. When chimps attack each other, and you've probably seen it, from working with them.
Oh yes.
There's nothing you can do really to get in the way. And I'd like to. This is a video about gorillas. I'd like to point out, but you've probably seen the video I'm thinking of, where it's two silverback gorillas or blackback gorillas having a fight with each other, and you can hear in the background some American woman who's talking about them, going, "Oh no, oh no! Why won't somebody get in there and stop them? Do you want to get in between two exceedingly large, powerful animals?"
As if it's a fight in the WWF.
Yeah, no, bad. And
he's coming with a chair.
Genuinely, you would get the same thing said about the chimps that I used to work with.
That doesn't surprise me, because I had it with tigers. I've had it with lions.
Do you want to get in there and stop them, madam? Because I don't.
Be my guest.
I like having my limbs.
Darwin Award is all yours.
And another thing when it comes to their fights, actually, they do actually heal up remarkably quick. For animals that have canines on them, the size that chimp canines are, they are huge.
They are big.
They can do an awful lot of damage to each other, and it's usually either just beating or biting is how they do things, but they will occasionally bash others with sticks. Their tool use does not just end at acquiring food, but occasionally this does then come into the human world, or to put it more in an accurate light, humans go into their world and increasingly chip away at the edges of these forests to basically scratch out a living. Now, there's always that argument when it comes to communities that live on the edges of these national parks. The people have been there just as long as the chimps have been there in some ways, and they are just trying to make a living. They're just trying to exist, a lot of the farmers that are there. And if you had chimps coming into your garden, would you feel comfortable letting your child out in the garden?
No, that would be a good that would be a good excuse for a movie day.
The chimps are in the garden again.
Possibly not Rise
going
of the Planet
out.
of the Apes.
Yeah. So yeah, it's hard to place a lot of blame on these local communities when it comes to stuff like that. It is when people are going out and setting snares and persecuting the chimps, but it is also a case of having to find that balance, and that's what a lot of these conservation groups aim to do, is to have people living there and being either subsidized for loss of crops or giving them better defenses to stop the chimps from coming into areas as well.
And in some cases, giving them wages to actually protect the chimps.
Yes, yeah.
And there was I don't know if they're still going now, but there was a organization that were paying the locals to go out into the jungle and take down snares, and then those snare wires were being made into these bracelets.
So their ability to sort of plan ahead as a species is on par with what we can do. They can plan ahead of time. They're also known for using medicinal plants as well, to basically just get them through things, and also for pain relief. So they are more than capable of being able to survive where they are. But
they even plot murders.
Yes, yeah, they really do.
Yeah.
So conservation threats is always the biggest thing, and with chimps, it's a huge thing because they are an enigmatic animal. They're a bit like tigers and lions and elephants. They're big, charismatic megafauna, and I'd say probably only gorillas, or I don't know, probably gorillas and orangutans probably outstrip them in terms of like public awareness. But all three of those are very much joint, in the public mind. So there's an estimated 300,000 chimps in the wild today. That's the remaining numbers of probably a much greater population before we've managed to destroy them. So the number of chimps in the wild is steadily decreasing as well. And one of the main causes is the alarming rate which forests are being cut down for farming. So a lot of these farms that are on the edges of national parks, they will be cutting down primary rainforest. And unfortunately, the quickest way of doing that is what's called slash and burn agriculture, where you cut everything down, sell off the timber as quickly as you can, and then burn the forest or burn what's there. And that leaves a little bit of nutrients in the soil, because rainforest soil is generally quite poor in nutrients and pretty bad for farming in. But if you've burnt stuff on it, it releases ash and various other things into the soil and makes it more fertile than it would be, but only for a very brief period of time. And a lot of what happens is that then moves on a little bit further for the same process a couple of years later.
Yeah.
Settlements as well have also encroached into these areas because populations have moved. A lot of the areas where these guys live have experienced civil wars and famines and all sorts of things that have caused people to move en masse and set up settlements just wherever they could, which is not great as well. This is an animal that suffers massively from the political borders and movements of the people around it, more so than probably a lot of other animals, actually. So another big area that influences them and connects them to the Simondoa cave roach directly, because that area of forest is actually mining, basically strip mining.
Of course, yeah.
So when we looked at the Simondoa roach and we looked at the map of where they were, that would also be prime chimp territory, or would have been prime chimp territory at one point or another. So yeah, we also need to take into account that mining for minerals and for use in technology, and also the increased amount of roads that go into areas, really disrupt their habitat. Now, the Simondoa roach was obviously just found in one specific ultra specific location, but chimps obviously can range across an area. But if their habitat is fragmented by roads or by mines, they're less likely to go around those areas. But also, if they do, there's a chance they may come into contact with humans, and that's where we get conflict arising.
Yeah.
And people are more than happy to shoot individual chimps that are bothering them. So, yeah, which leads into a whole other area, bushmeat.
Oh,
And
yeah,
the
yeah.
bushmeat trade is incredibly. I should have actually given a massive warning that this is an incredibly depressing creature feature in some ways. The bushmeat trade has always been a source of dietary protein for local communities. Makes sense. If you live in the forest, you're probably going to rely on the forest.
Yeah.
It's the scale of which hunting has come about. More roads going into these areas will allow people to take stuff from further into the forest and bring it directly back into larger communities that may have no connection to the forest whatsoever. And we're seeing everything from chimps, species of deer, all sorts of stuff that just get taken from the wild to be sold in markets. And that also has an impact on the spread of diseases that would otherwise be in the middle of a forest that humans would probably never get to.
Yeah.
Being spread into meat markets for things like that. And I wonder where those sort of things can come into the global spread of things. So, yes. So, some solutions briefly before we wrap up on protecting species of chimp. Obviously, raising awareness is a massive thing. Allowing people to know what it's like in these areas, and by having ecotourism to these areas as well, provides money to the local communities.
Yeah.
And a lot of the ecotourism sort of things are set up to directly benefit those local communities. Raising awareness amongst the local people who live in those areas and getting people to understand that they're in the same place as these animals. And yes, there are issues, but there is a way to get along with each other.
Definitely.
And everyone to benefit. Buying more sustainably sourced materials, timber, minerals, things like that, to basically stop areas being strip mined, and pushing for stronger controls on agricultural expansion and mineral expansion to basically slow those things down and just protect the animals in general as well.
Yeah.
But probably one of the things that I didn't touch on at all is the illegal pet trade. I mean, there are so many things we could have gone on to with this. The illegal pet trade is a massive thing that's come off the back of people going in and taking individuals. Some of the chimps that I'd worked with in the past had probably seen their entire families butchered in front of them before being stuck in a crate, shipped across to Spain, where they would have become chimps to basically sit there and amuse tourists until they would have got to a point where they're considered too old and too dangerous to be around humans, and then either sold off to either a lab or got rid of in not so nice ways. So chimps are an ultimately fascinating animal. I think we could definitely come back to them in the future.
Yeah, chimps are one of those animals that you're never gonna crack the nut in just one creature feature. They are
it's
huge.
It
topic.
was really hard writing this and trying to fit in some of the very basic things, but also give some of that extra information. Some of the little bits and pieces that I'd seen these guys do over the years. And these are just captive chimps, the ones that I've worked with. I've never seen them in the wild. I've never been to Africa. So just the sheer amazingness that they have as a species, is ultimately amazing. So shall we move on into our emails?
Let's do it.
You can give us a pant hoot to try and hear us email wise.
Bing! You've got mail. Ooh, it's an email.
So we're into this week's emails, and we're going to start things off as per usual with our usual question from last week, which was based on your Sidewinder episode.
Yeah.
What is your favorite desert species? Not dessert species. So we've got a few different answers. Our very own Jess has put not strictly desert, but I think an argument could be made for these three. She's included a picture of me with one of the tortoises from work and our lovely Guatemalan spiny-tailed iguana, of which my other half has put replied to that saying, Jess, the one on the right, that would be me, is a desert species, of which she's replied.
Yes, I laughed at that. I thought that was
Of which
very
you
funny.
replied to it.
Oh yeah, it was me that replied.
Yes, I love how everyone is saying, I look forward to him reading this out on the show.
Yeah, you didn't go quite as red as what I was hoping, though.
Well,
I thought you were gonna
spent
go
hours in the mirror practicing this particular bit.
It's a cool photo, though. It is a nice photo.
It's not the best one. There's a better picture of me looking forward with those two next to me. But it came time to try and take photos, like staff photos for use in promotional stuff.
Oh,
and I went, well, if I'm doing this right. I'm going to lie down with one of the animals, and have me next to a tortoise.
You're doing like a very grounded version of like the Owen Grady kind of raptor thing. Yeah,
I'd much rather get in with the animals, and
absolutely.
Artemis the tortoise there deserves to have all the publicity. So yeah, you go.
So the next comment comes to us from Karen Coomright, who says, "Not gonna lie, I read that as dessert species. Eating sugar-free is killing me."
Of which I think my wife then basically went with the same thought of going, Knickerblock of Glory is one of my favorites.
And then our very own Drew has come back to us with some really nice species.
Long list.
He says, "Look, there's lots of great desert fauna: chameleons, monitors." I personally agree with monitors. Road runners, again, that's a good one. that threw me off. Oryx, not you, meerkats. I agree with that again. But I believe an excellent case was made by an exceptionally talented orator for the humble Mongolian gerbil on this lesser-known podcast, and he's provided a link.
Well done, Drew.
I'd like to point out that it's one of our most listened to episodes. Suck on that, hamsters. To which Jess has replied, "You can't truly test that without a hamster episode." To which I've replied, "I shotgun not doing a hamster episode. Haha, joke's on you, Gareth."
I'll take that. I'll take that challenge, and I will do a hamster episode. Because I've got to admit, I found the European hamster rather interesting.
Well, they're interesting. I just don't want to do it.
No. So Kelsey Watts has put camels, both of them equally. I've got both types tattooed on my side. Got the nickname from birth. So yeah. Also, his the rest of his comment is somewhat redacted. We'll leave that. But yeah, moving on.
Redentia Info has said, got to be Heterocephalus glaber, the naked mole rat, aka the toothed penis. So specialized to desert life that you should never even see these extremophiles.
Yeah, they are real odd creatures.
They are cool.
Spencer Seams, turkey vulture, because these vultures are cool, cute, and deserve respect. I do like a turkey vulture.
Yeah, I replied to that saying I nearly opted for a vulture species. It came this close, but I actually was I actually can't remember what I chose in the end.
Fair enough.
We also had one comment on YouTube, and this comes to us from one of our lovely Patreon supporters, actually, from Nick to Nick, and he says the inland taipan would have to be my favorite desert species. Such amazing potency. The arms race to get to this stage is fascinating. I also like the desert/arid echidnas with no fur. They're so strange looking compared to our big Tassie fluffball echidnas.
Yeah,
so a couple of cool ones there.
Yeah, no, they're really cool. Right, well, that's our answers for last week's question. This week, we're going to pose you another poll. We've done that in the past with the elephants and with the big cats. We're now going to do it with the great apes. So you're going to have the choice. We're going to sort of compress it down so we don't have loads of choices. We're not going to do all 4 sub races of chimp and all the other different ones, but it'll be down to the likes of orangutan, gorilla, chimp, bonobo. So, Aaron, what's your number 1 ape? Well, that's a tough one, isn't it?
No, it's not really.
But what's your prediction going to be? Because my prediction will be gorilla or orangutan for the win, to be honest.
Okay, my prediction for the win, I think you're right. It's going to be gorilla or orangutan, but I think it'd be cheating to say that. So I'm gonna put my eggs in the gorilla basket. That being said, my choice would either be I think my choice would be chimpanzee.
Yeah.
I admire. There's something about them that I admire, but either a joint first or a close second, because Atta, my partner, has really won me over with them. Is gorillas. There's a serene peace to the power that they possess.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah, and they're just like gentle giants.
Nothing like what Hollywood portrays them as.
No. So yeah, but that Atta has won me over with gorillas. I think without that influence, it would be chimpanzees, and I feel so privileged and lucky and honored that someone would have hired me to do without any great ape experience to experience a little bit during my time as a seasonal keeper. Again, I was more with the brown cap capuchins and the squirrel monkeys, but to get that taste of working with chimps, I was extremely lucky and grateful.
I think for me it goes to chimp, because they're the ones that I've worked with the most. Had a very brief amount of time with orangutans, and got up close to a few gorillas, but yeah, I don't know. Chimps, there's just something more about them. I think it's because I've got a bias of having worked with them for longer and done stuff with,
Also, they're just so weird as well. I remember, because obviously I was just a seasonal keeper, so whenever I worked with the chimps, I was shadowing someone. Okay, I was never on my own. Quite rightly, just a seasonal keeper, with no previous experience. But I do remember, like, in the mornings, you'd turn the lights on, you'd say hello to them before they could see you. Just, I guess so you don't. The same way I used to whistle to a lot of my animals before I get to the enclosure, I'd start whistling the same thing, just so they knew it was me coming and I was going to come around the corner, not spook them or anything. Anyway, with the chimps, you'd hello, good morning, and then you'd switch the lights on, say hello, good morning. You'd do a few bits in the kitchen, then you'd come around the corner, and like, my memory of it is that they'd all be sat in a little circle,
plotting what to do next,
kind of murmuring, and they'd all go quiet and look over their shoulders, and they'd watch you go and check the doors, and they'd watch you back to the kitchen, and then they'd all go. You could hear them go, and they'd start murmuring again. Yeah, just a very, very cool animal.
Yeah. Well, that'll be going up on our Facebook page, so you can basically add your thoughts to that, and we'll settle this dispute next week, shall we? Well, that pretty much brings us to our point in the show where we like to thank our Patreons. So, Aaron, what are we looking at?
Yeah, that's right. So every week we like to give a little love back by shouting out the names of our wonderful Patreon supporters. Now, these are the cupboard dwellers who are kind enough to support us through a monetary contribution, for which we are grateful beyond words. And these lovely people are, of course, Fogtober, Jen Greenhall, Connie P, Chelsea McKee, Nick to Nick, and Justin Knife. Guys, your financial contributions are actively helping us here in a natural history cupboard in a myriad of ways to improve. We really can't thank you enough. So saying that, we also can't thank enough any of our cupboard dwellers, really, for the support that you give us through listening, sharing, subscribing, watching, I should say. I keep forgetting to say watching. We're on YouTube now.
Yeah.
And commenting. Just comment to say hello if you want, or comment a question or whatever you want. Any feedback is good feedback, and it all helps us in the algorithm. So yeah, thank you very much. But if you are considering joining our lovely Patreon supporters, you can do so at 2 tier levels. There's the Nature Nerds and the Animal Ambassadors, and you can find more info about those out on our Patreon webpage. But with that all said, I think all that's left to say is just to reiterate how grateful we are and say thank you and call it from the rooftops.
Thank you very much. And that pretty much brings us to the end of this week's episode. So please feel free to like, subscribe, comment, do all of those sort of things on whatever podcasting or platform you are listening or watching us on. Get involved in the polls. Go and have a look at what we put up throughout the week. Tell a friend, tell an enemy, pant hoot from the top of the trees to let everyone know that we are here. And we will see you next time in the Natural History Cupboard. Bye.
And ciao for now.
One does not simply pant hoot really well unless you're actually a well-known primatologist.